Hello, and welcome to the first webinar of the school year 2019-2020 school year, and our fourth webinar overall designed for Cycle 1 and Cycle 2 Grow Your Own Grant Program Support. This webinar is applicable to all grantees, both grant managers and education and training course teachers and leaders, who are responsible now or in the future for building an effective education and training program. It is also applicable to all schools and districts that are launching and/or implementing an education and training program in high schools, even those that are not part of a grant cohort. The purpose of today's webinar is to identify the appropriate courses for which to integrate field placements, the rules and guidelines surrounding field site placements and grant reminders, create a school or district-specific set of knowledge, skills, and dispositions for what to look for in field site placement teachers, which includes participants' understanding of diversity as a key objective of the grant, as well as consideration of shortage areas, access and adapt sample field site placement plans that acknowledge the logistics that must be balanced with the curricular and best practice needs, including 3 different types of plans: an inclusive plan, a checklist, and a timeline to ensure we can meet the needs of different styles of work. My name is Liz Nelson, and I work at the Texas Comprehensive Center at American Institutes for Research. I'm drawing from my experience here at AIR supporting the Texas Education Agency on the Grow Your Own work, relevant research in the field, and also my own time working in the field. It's important for us to start by establishing why we're here today. In addition to being a requirement for some courses, field experiences are a key opportunity for your education and training programs. They can set the culture of education for districts. Students see what the culture of teaching currently is across schools and bring that back to their education and training classes. That gives field site teachers the chance to share their passion for teaching and even reignite some of it. Additionally, education and training students are potentially the future of your teaching workforce. You are growing your own and therefore are shaping the culture of your future educators right in your current classrooms. Finally, education and training field experiences serve as a precursor to future clinical hours during the traditional education degree. Students gain extensive opportunity for contextual application of their skills, and you have the opportunity to set them up for success. To avoid any confusion, TEA and its Grow Your Own team, along with CTE division, have defined some key terms. A field experience, as you can see here, is any planned instructional interaction or other type of learning activity that is designed to set up students for success in teaching roles with learners. Another key term is the field site classroom, which is basically just the location of the field experience. The field site teacher is the teacher in the field site classroom with whom the student is working. Additionally, you should be aware that when we say learners, we're referring to those that are instructed or observed by the high school student. And finally, we've referred to your students as simply students thus far, and we'll continue to use that word, students, to refer to your high school students, or we may use this word here, student intern, as referenced here, to mean your education and training students. And we'll use, like we said before, we'll use the word learners to refer to those that your education and training students are working with in their field site classrooms and in their field experiences. Let's take a moment on this slide to clarify the course sequence. Typically, instructional practices and the practicum in education and training are the heaviest on field experiences, but all of your courses can have field experiences. Both instructional practices and the practicum in education and training courses, extended or not, are practicums and have work-based learning components. We'll talk about best practices for all field experiences and practicums, but also what's required for courses with practicums, also known as your work-based learning components, in this webinar. Overall, it's best practice to wait until at least 6 weeks into the year to begin any field experience rotation. This allows you and your students to prepare on the basic principles, procedures, and expectations in respect to ethics and safety, as well as get underway on the TEKS around strong instruction, planning, and more that can be helpful in the multiple facets of field experiences, such as observations, assistance to the classroom teacher, development of instructional materials, small group work, individual learner tutoring, and more. Additionally, this time will allow you, as the teacher or teacher coordinator, to get to know your students in your class if you don't already. Knowing their personalities and interests will help set you up for success in placing them in their field experiences. Stay tuned to hear a little bit more about this. Here's how we'll spend our time today in this webinar. Right now, we're finishing up the introduction and the context. Then, we're going to move on to learn about the essential characteristics of a field site teacher before continuing on to requirements and planning before leaving you with some next steps and resources to continue to use. What this webinar will not focus on are the details of how you will work with your student interns and best practices for observing and monitoring them. It will touch on some of the requirements around them when we get into the work-based learning rules, but not all the best practices around them. There are resources we'll share that you can look into further. However, 45 minutes is not enough to cover best practices around every aspect of field experiences. But remember, the communities of practice and TEA's CTE website are both crucial places to gather more information, and there'll be links to those at the end of the webinar. As a reminder, field experiences are a key opportunity. While we are sharing insights from research and best practices here about field sites, the reason for this webinar is based on both focus group insights into need and hearing from colleagues during cycle 1 of the grant about how doing this well is crucial to a successful education and training program. In interviews with districts, some themes we heard from the field are reflected above. While it's required that you provide a field experience, it's important that you provide a strong one so that students continue in the program and become enthused about it. They may end up pursuing teaching or training, yes, but they also will have insights into the field and knowledge and skills that will be crucial regardless of what they pursue. Having strong relationships with teachers and leaders so that the best practices that we'll cover here later of field experiences and mutual evaluation of field experiences could be accomplished is so important. Many that we spoke to noted that students often didn't observe live instruction and they were unable to schedule time with field site teachers to communicate in person or over the phone. This hindered not only student learning, but the ability of the instructors to do their best to instruct the student intern. In fact, it could be said that field experiences are the quintessential opportunity of the education and training program. This is the thing that students talk about when they reflect upon their education and training experience, regardless of their ultimate decision on whether to become a teacher or not. In our interviews with districts, some themes we heard from the field, again, are reflected above. Field experiences were the key to recruitment and retention. Many students signed up for education and training programs because they wanted the opportunity to participate in field experiences. However, a poor field experience or a lack of a field experience impacted whether or not a student decided to remain in education and training programs. These are some things to consider as you think about implementation of your field experiences. So, as you think about your field site teacher and identifying the different field site teachers you'll have, what are the essential characteristics you're looking for? When you consider who you want your students to observe teaching and help in the classroom, you probably have some descriptors that come to mind. You probably have some names of teachers that come to mind. And you recognize that there are some qualities of these individuals that you call out for these folks that make them ideal field site teachers. Some of these that we heard at Institute and in interviews are on this slide in terms of the qualities. Thinking about this for a minute, who else might they describe besides the teacher? Is your postman friendly, hardworking, organized? Does he get good results? Is he experienced? Was he in his job for 25 years? Could these describe a doctor, a lawyer, someone who worked in an office, the mayor? What our challenge to you is to get more specific. Who exactly are you looking for? Why do the folks you thought of, those names you already considered, come to mind? Let's be as specific as possible. The New Teacher Center recently came out with standards for their mentors of new teachers. They looked at for core things that combine the ability of a strong teacher and someone who will successfully mentor a new teacher. While the student intern is not yet a teacher themselves, this ability to mentor someone is key. How can you think about what that person can do to help the student intern's learning? So let's get specific. You have thoughts on who should be working with your students. The specific things you're looking for are knowledge, skills, and dispositions. And we added a plus. Knowledge is a body of factual, technical, or procedural information that a person uses to perform their job. Their skill is the capability developed through training or practice to perform the tasks of the job. And the disposition is a general human trait that influences how well the person can carry out the job tasks, including physical and mental capacities, attitudes, preferences, beliefs, or personality traits. And plus, what does plus mean? Plus are the other traits you're looking for. A diverse group of field site teachers in experience, race, ethnicity, gender, background, those who have unique connection to students, perhaps, but aren't quite captured by the knowledge, skills, and dispositions. Coaches who can share what it's like to be a teacher and a coach. Specific shared interests, grade level diversity, different pathways to preparation. You will also want to ensure if you have shortage areas, you're considering field site teachers in those shortage areas to potentially enhance interest in those areas. Let's get more specific. Looking in deeply at knowledge. Here's a Texas teaching standard related to knowledge. Standard 6, professional practices and responsibilities. Teachers consistently hold themselves to a high standard for individual development, pursue leadership opportunities, collaborate with other education professionals, communicate regularly with stakeholders, maintain professional relationships, comply with all campus and school district policies, and conduct themselves ethically and with integrity. Whew, that's a lot, and yes, they should. So first, why have we chosen this standard, and why would you want this in a field site teacher? Well, things like if they're continuously improving, they understand growth, and that could be beneficial to your student intern. Someone who's a strong communicator will make your relationship easier when you communicate about the student intern. So there's multiple pieces here. Let's drill down to just one and think about how we would evaluate it so you can check the box as you're thinking about someone. Here's section A1. Teachers reflect on their teaching practice to improve their instructional effectiveness and engage in continuous professional learning to gain knowledge and skills and refine professional judgment. Okay, that's a lot more specific than 6 overall. And as we get into 1, it's even more so. Teachers reflect on their own strengths and professional learning needs, using this information to develop action plans for improvement. Okay. So, what does this look like in practice? And how does this sound? How can you know which teacher does this or ask about this without the wordiness of the standard, without all the jargon that was in Standard 6, which was all important, but really can get you to the specific of, I want a teacher who's reflective and thinks about improving themselves, because if they're thinking about their own improvement, they'll translate that to improve thinking about my student intern's improvement. So what does that look like? And what might you hear a principal say about that teacher, or what might you see that teacher do? The example here is I see them attend professional development based on their areas for improvement, or their principal sees that. Or it could sound like you hear them offering assistance to new teachers in guided reading, which you know is one of the things that is an area of strength that they love and enjoy and they're just so good at, and they're actively offering that assistance to another new teacher. That's seeing them demonstrate or hearing them demonstrate 6A1. Let's get specific in a skill here. Now we're looking at Texas Teaching Standard 4 about the learning environment. The teachers interact with students in respectful ways at all times, maintaining a physically and emotionally safe, supportive learning environment that is characterized by efficient and effective routines, clear expectations for student behavior, and organization that maximizes student learning. Okay, again, why this standard? Why would you want it for your field site teachers? The things that come to mind for me are this teacher is an exemplar of respect. They're illustrating strong management and routines for the student intern in their classroom. They're also maximizing instructional time, which is a good example for student interns to see. And organization is great for both their work with the student intern and for partnering with me as the education and training course teacher. So thinking about how I could evaluate that, I would want to get more specific. And in this case, look at D1. So teachers maintain a culture that is based on high expectations for student performance and encourages students to be self-motivated, taking responsibility for their own learning. So, How do we see and hear that? We are going to want to make sure that we see the teachers ensuring that students who get a B when they should be getting an A, for instance, in middle school, and didn't because they slacked off, are ensuring that they're talking with that student. And we are going to want to hear from maybe the principal that a lot of the time in class is spent with student-directed learning. Those are some of the things that we might want to see or hear to ensure that we are looking for the right skills in our teacher. For dispositions, teachers demonstrate the belief that all students have the potential to achieve at high levels, and they support all students in pursuit of their social, emotional learning and academic success. With this Texas teaching standard, we're going to want to zoom in a little bit further about what that means. So, looking at 1, 2, and 3 underneath, we are specifically seeing that teachers should be purposely utilizing learners' individual strengths as a basis for academic and social emotional growth, creating a community of learners in an inclusive environment, and accepting responsibility for the growth of all their students, persisting in their efforts to ensure a high level of growth on the part of each learner. So let's be clear here. The disposition itself is the belief. The standard here is the demonstration of the belief. We chose this standard because for your field site teachers, we'd want them to illustrate to your student interns respect for all students, high expectations for all students, and an inclusive community for a diverse set of learners. So this might look and sound like students excited to be in their class and signing up for it willingly. Students telling you that the class is hard. The teacher reaching out to parents and siblings to support student success. The teacher looking for solutions when students are not meeting goals. And we can't forget the plus. As I mentioned before, plus is the other traits you're looking for. A diverse group of field site teachers in experience, race, ethnicity, gender, background, those who have unique connections to students, perhaps, that aren't quite captured by the knowledge, skills, and dispositions, coaches who can share what it's like to be a teacher and a coach, specific shared interests, grade level, pathways to preparation, and more. For instance, under the varied preparation pathways, you might think about ensuring you have teachers who were prepared in alternate routes or traditional pathways, knowing that in Texas, about 50% of teachers come through traditional pathways and 50% through alternate routes. But another way to think of it is you might want teachers who are prepared close to home in a local school or university, and teachers who went to school further away, and think about the varied perspectives that they can each give. You're going to use these KSDs and the plus, the knowledge, skills, and dispositions and the plus to create a profile of your ideal field site teacher. You'll have your vision, and you can more clearly identify the set of teachers who meet these requirements and move forward from there. Here's a sample profile that you could potentially use as a checklist. You'll use the knowledge, skills, and dispositions in the plus to create a profile of the ideal field site teacher. When you have your vision, you can more clearly identify the set of teachers who meet these requirements and move forward from there. You'll want to create a checklist with your non-negotiables and in a way that is easy for you or another person to understand, because you may not always get to make the selection of your field site teachers. Therefore, the more you can make your list accessible to anyone and clear what you mean by reflective, the more likely your field site teachers will be aligned with your vision for the program. So you might know what you mean by Standard 6A is a reflective practitioner. But if another principal looks at this and sees those look, listen fors of leads and attends PD, talks about what they want to improve upon, that for them can help them identify candidates who fit that criteria. Keep it to your most important points and give those real sounds like, looks like examples when you can. You don't want this to overwhelm someone so that they just end up giving you the same list. Now that you know who you're looking for, let's make sure you know what's expected of you. You are implementing a work-based learning program, your entire education and training program. The first thing you should do is ensure you enroll in this free Texas CTE work-based learning course. This is required for all teachers of courses with field site experiences. It will answer many of the key questions that you have, and this course provides information related to federal laws, state rules, and best practices related to work-based learning. Additionally, this course offers tools and templates that will help you in setting up the work-based learning, or practicum, component of your education and training field experiences. Remember, this course is required for all teachers of instructional practices and practicum or extended practicum in education and training. Next, you should be reviewing the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, Section 5.7, Career Preparation and Practicum Learning Experiences, linked from the main page of Texas CTE's Work-Based Learning. This has requirements related to work-based learning for review, so you can ensure that you are meeting the attendance, observation, and tracking requirements based on your district and school's education and training program. Once you've taken the course and reviewed this handbook, any remaining questions regarding work-based learning should be directed to Debbie Wieland at the above email address. Grant questions should still go to gyogrants@tea.texas.gov. Moving on from requirements, let's zoom in on putting a plan into place, thinking about specifically the field site teacher training that you're going to need to do to set yourself up for success with those field site teachers you've selected. First off, remember, you're not a team of one. You have so many folks who you can involve in this process. The key players working with you are across your district and campus. They're administrators, counselors, district leaders, CTE and other work-based learning, education and training teachers if you're the grant manager, the grant manager if you're the education and training teacher. Other teacher leaders are your allies, even if they're not a field site teacher. Department chairs, grade level leaders, professional learning community leaders. They can encourage and support teachers who are your field site teachers. They may even recommend some for you. You should think through the unique role and attributes that each person brings. And I just want to note that this will, of course, look different from district to district. Some districts and campuses are smaller, while others are bigger. Just like some campuses and districts have had programs in place for years, while others are building this out, maybe for the very first time. Utilize your assets. All of you have unique features and people that you can partner with to make this process go well. The size of your team doesn't matter. The vision for success and execution of your plan does. You should also feel free to go visit another district or school that has effectively implemented the education and training programs to go ahead and learn from their example. We're going to go over 3 different field experience plans, 3 examples. You're going to create a plan to recruit your field site teachers and execute it. There'll be a balance, or tango, if you will, as you work to ensure all your students are matched with a strong field site teacher, as close to your ideal as possible, in a way that's logistically feasible for your specific school and district, as well as your individual students. Then you have to train these teachers and track your students and their experiences. The things you need to really look for in these plans to make sure that they'll work for you are the main steps, as I call them, which is, do you identify, recruit, and select your teachers? Did you train them? Is there a method of tracking? Did you take a chance to celebrate? And did you reflect on what went well and grow from there? And then the logistics need to be there too. There need to be clear owners, a clear timeline, and records need to be kept. Besides that, you need to ensure you pick a plan that works for you and your team. The worst thing you can do is pick a plan that you don't use. I suggest that you note here these look-fors that are here as we dive into the plans that we're going to review. This is sample plan A. It's a checklist. I'll give you a moment to look through the slides. Think about the look-fors, the main steps, the logistics, what's positive, what's it lacking, does it have the requirements, all the pieces, first, the main steps. Identify, recruit, select, training, tracking, celebrating, reflecting, and growing. They're all noted on there. However, they aren't as fully fleshed out as they could be. Next, are the logistics there? There are not clear owners throughout. Sometimes it's noted that, quote, all of us will do it, but it's not clear who all of us is. There is also a place to note the date that something's completed, but a timeline isn't provided. So no one will know if they're on or off track. And finally, it's noted that there will be record keeping, but it's not clear what records will be kept and for how long, just that they'll be in the education and training classroom. Record keeping, by the way, is fully covered in the work-based learning training. To be clear, this plan is better than not having one, but it's certainly not complete with all the steps required. However, with some supporting documents and maybe a few tweaks, it could work for a school or district, and it could work for you. This is sample plan B. It's a detailed spreadsheet. The same thing. Take a moment to look through it and think through what are the positives, what does it lack, does it have the requirements, all the pieces, how does it compare with the checklist we just looked at? First off, the main steps. Identify, recruit, select, train, track, celebrate. Those are all clearly noted, as well as the fact that celebration will be used as a recruitment tool to retain teachers as field site teachers for next year. Reflection is clearly stated at the end, though it could be more clear what the action steps are, or it could be done throughout. Are the logistics there? There are owners, but the advisory group could be broken down further because it's not clear how big the advisory group is, if you need all members to make a decision, or if one person is the ultimate decider, do you need consensus, majority? There is a timeline with start and stop dates, so it will be clear when things can be completed at the same time, or the group will know whether they're on or off track, and the record keeping is a bit more clear here. This plan is stronger, and it's still not completely overwhelming. It's also clear, given the fact that there's category and subcategory, that this could be part of a larger education and training program plan, and this is that portion on field experiences. I also want to note that as things go well, you do want to reflect on how to solidify your field site teachers and assignments even sooner. If you have great partners, get their commitment for the next year or cycle before the current year or cycle ends. This is Sample Plan C, a planning chart. Again, take a look through it. What are the positives here? What might it lack? Does it have all the requirements, all the pieces? Compare it with the other two plans we just saw. Taking a look at the main steps: identify, recruit, select, training, tracking, celebrating, reflect, and grow. They're all part of this plan, but they aren't as clearly noted as some of the other plans. The logistics are there, but ownership is definitely not as clear here as it was in the last plan. It's more similar to the first plan. The timeline is not as exact as the last one, but there are deadlines of when things need to happen. And the record keeping is detailed in steps, but not as time-bound. This plan, again, has the bones, but maybe not all the things we're looking for. However, visually, it can give a quick glance of what needs to be done and could be built out with ownership to be even more helpful. And a couple of other notes. This has decisions made by the individual planner. For instance, training materials could be finalized before school starts. Additionally, cooperating teachers are required to record a formal observation of students at least once per grading period. Given this chart says each semester, that may or may not work for the school or district. This is a case where you're going to want to, again, choose a plan that you will use that is as clear as possible to who is going to use it, and that keeps you on track with the requirements that you'll need. Zooming in now on field site teacher training. This is a place where we heard feedback that a little bit more support could be helpful. Field site teachers need to know what they're signing up for. Training provided by the education and training teacher should clarify for them what their roles and responsibilities are, as well as the rules and expectations discussed earlier. Field site teacher responsibilities are often to utilize and involve the student intern in various roles to give them a broad range of exposures to the roles of the teacher, such as planning, implementing, evaluating classroom instruction, conducting lessons. They also want to determine a sequential and meaningful field experience assignment for the student in conjunction with the teacher coordinator. The field site teacher provides oversight and assistance to the student in managing and carrying out assignments, provides necessary resources and/or guidance to the student intern in locating resources, provides immediate and ongoing feedback to the student intern, in addition to more formal evaluations. And while students are leading class activities, assumes responsibility for supervision and support, never leaving the student intern alone in the class, and ongoing communication with the teacher coordinator regarding schedule changes that happen because of testing, field trips, etc. These are a list of things you might start with in terms of what a field site teacher is responsible for. These things can be written down, can be emailed, and should be a starting place for some of your training with the field site teacher. The rules are the work-based learning rules. Make sure your field site teacher has the knowledge they need about those. As far as expectations, these will vary based on school or district, but will involve, as previously mentioned, the evaluation of the student intern, ensuring records of hours, communication with the education and training teacher, and more. Basically, your training needs to align expectations for field site teachers with the expectations you will set up for student interns. Your field site teachers are your partners. The expectations for student interns are clear to you, the field site teacher, and the student intern. You should be aligned on what performance is expected in the classroom from the student intern, and your field site teacher needs to know that. You should be expecting feedback on your student's performance from the field site teacher through evaluation. The feedback should not be a surprise to your students, to the field site teacher, or for you, or to you. Therefore, you will want to have regular communication with the field site teacher, observations and pop-ins. 1 observation per marking period is required, but also an evaluation to have a written assessment. You can utilize something like this on the slide more formatively too, if necessary. You can choose to grade this, as well as have a conversation on alignment. In this form, both the field site teacher and classroom teacher can note how the student intern is performing related to professional standards and employability skills. And of course, you don't just want to pop in when your field site teacher is instructing and expect a meeting. Popping in is okay to observe your student interns, but ensure you ideally have time with them that is dedicated to, and not just virtually, in person or phone, if possible. Your field site teachers are signing off on things like the form you saw before, work verification, and more, as required by work-based learning rules. You want them to ask questions, establish a rapport, and feel supported. You want to ensure they are providing a great instructional experience for your students as well. Set this time up early and follow through. It's important as schedules don't always align. In between, phone and email can be great touch points. So now that you have all this information, what do you do with it? For a successful field experience, finalize your criteria for your field site teachers and make them shareable. Ensure that you meet all state requirements for work-based learning. Take those trainings, ask questions, gather the resources you need. Speaking of gathering, grab your team to work together for the education and training program. Create your plan for those field site experiences. Make sure it's one that you will use. And don't forget, you have resources. Thank you for watching this webinar on field experiences for Grow Your Own. Be sure to check out the Grow Your Own program details on the TEA website, the curricular and support resources available at txcte.org for education and training courses, as well as the websites for Texas FTCLA and TAFE, the 2 career and technical student organizations that support the education and training pathway. And as always, please keep in touch with questions or ideas via the email addresses on the screen. Thank you again for joining and for your work to strengthen teaching and learning in Texas.